She learns a lot. You see her from the beginning of the movie. She's kind of a mean girl. You see her record them and kind of be bullying and be and she's swayed easily by her peers, and then you see her slowly transform into this very young, mature woman, and it's because she learns all of these beautiful life lessons from these ladies on, how to be grateful and how to chase your dreams and how to really recognize what you love about yourself. And yeah, it's such a beautiful little arc Chloe has. Um, I mean, they learned a lot about their bodies, that's for sure. They learned how to pump it, and they learned probably, I mean, just to let loose and just shake it all out. I had zero cheer experience. I was in a pep rally when I was in fifth grade, which doesn't really count because I was a 9-year-old girl. And I did dance for like 10 years, but I had no rhythm. So it was just all that training was of no use. So it was really funny for me to have to teach them how to cheer when I had no idea what was going on. Yes, I was there for a couple of days and it was so much fun. I mean, it's just a space where you get to really let loose and like go over the routines again, and it was such a fun place to be. Diane and Jackie are such hilarious women, naturally, and then being able to watch them do a scene together was like comedy gold. They get to improvise sometimes, and their witty banter is just, it was endless and it was so entertaining, and I was so happy I got to watch them work.
I was so lucky early December of 2017 to be at an Academy screening, and Rose Gangaza of Rose Pictures, Rose Productions, came up to me. We'd never met, and she handed me her beautiful card that has a black background with a red rose on it. She said, "I'm making a film with Diane Keaton and Jacki Weaver, and I'd like you to be in it." So that we were off to the races in my mind. The script was like gravy. By then I was already in. Diane is one of our finest actors, and she had directed me twice before, and I I felt so privileged to have those experiences. So just saying her name, she didn't even have to get ton out. It was Diane Keaton. Please, yes, please. So then I met Zara on Skype, and not too much later, and I loved her, and we had great conversation. And so of the roles, Vicky, I just had a special place for Vicky, the Dragon Queen, the Southern Belle Viper, and thankfully that happened, and we had a lot of fun with it. What was especially fun and joyous was that this was a project that was female led. Zara Hayes, our director, and producers, and then all of these women of a certain age. Thankfully, our industry doesn't throw away people in their senior years because there are always life stories that have them. Um, Roles for women still are at a deficit compared to men, but how wonderful and almost unique, sadly, to have all of us women who are senior citizens kicking and sweating and shaking their booty. They did, and I just tried to kill their joy. So I had fun doing that. Well, I think that Zara was interested in this film initially from documentaries, which is, of course, her acumen to begin with, of women actually doing this, who were senior aged women successfully being cheerleaders and organized cheerleaders. And so she went from her, her primary interest of documentation to this story making and a narrative. But I think the way she shot it, there's no pantyhose on the lens, there's no Botox, we're all just hanging it out and sweating with the oldies from back in the day. So, she really hit a nerve and a heartstring, featuring women at this stage in their lives and triumphing and new endeavor and interest. And then, of course, for Diane's character, who's gone from a woman successfully living independently in New York City, faced with the probable end of her life, and she elects to take this journey alone, cuts off the support system she does have, and goes to a place for complete anonymity with no obligation to anyone, just to quietly exit. And then these women find her, and her end of life is so rich and full of love, and I think that's the heart of the film. The whole cheerleading club is just, wonderful environment for this story to happen. And then, of course, it's very specifically, it's Diane's character's thwarted dream as a girl when she had to give up her own cheerleading. I don't want to spoil the whole story, but she gets to accomplish that in her, in her end of life scenario. I hope when people see Poms that they maybe they have a respect they hadn't tapped for the productivity of women of a certain age, that life is still rich, and not to discount us, to still have respect and have a lot of fun. These women have that and find it, and that, just because, say, we're lucky in this field of acting and the arts that there's not a timeline on your ability to do it. The majority of people in the world reach a certain age and they're told bye-bye by their companies and it's over for you. No, you must retire now. And that you have to reinvent yourself. So as actors, we get to continue, but this is inspirational for those who think, who pulled the plug on this, and what's the next chapter? I mean, I'm not ready to for 6 Feet Under, and so it just shows people triumphing over someone else's dictating what their life has to be now. Poms, of course, is about all of this personal triumph of a group of women and exalting us of a certain age. But I think the most moving moment for me is at the end of their presentation of their cheerleading act, and the camera's close in on Diane's face, and for those 3 or 4 seconds of their an exaltation and arms up, palms up, and you see in her face, you just see the completion of this journey, that she's realized a dream, that she was thwarted earlier in her life, and an acknowledgement that this is the end is approaching because of her decisions. And it's just runs the gamut of acceptance, achievement, and peace. And that's definitely a reality of all of us as we age, is coming to terms with that life ends. And I get choked up thinking about it, but she's a beautiful artist, and she gave us that. Well, honestly, I loved them all, but I must say the golf cart scenario where I'm chasing them to really put the dagger in their joy and in their accomplishment with Bruce McGill as my rent-a-cop, who's my little bitch, making Bruce that. And he kicked and screamed all the way, but we got it on camera for me to get to just scream at him. In editing, there a lot goes away, but there was at one point flooring that golf cart, and my helmet hair was, I knew it was a very Vicky thing that she would be devastated to lose her hairdo in this chase. So I kept holding it, but we didn't use those takes. I'm sure things had to match and that sort of thing, but that car chase was a delight.
A few years ago, my agent told me about this woman, Zara Hayes, and that she had this movie and about cheerleaders, cheerleaders my age. And I thought, well, that's very strange. But anyway, so I thought, okay. So I went in and I spoke to her. We were at a restaurant, and she told me about the movie. And I remember thinking, that could be interesting. And then what happened, which was really also something, is I read the script. And when I read the script, I thought, I really like this. And so maybe we could do this together. And that became the beginning of what, of course, evolved into the actual fact that, like last night, we saw the movie. It was made. And it was really, really a great experience because I really made friends with a lot of women my age or in the area of my age, and every one of them is just kind of like a little national treasure. That's the way I see it. Anyway, so that's what happened. One of the things that's really important is that the first person I heard about who is being considered to play, really, I think, kind of the essential role, and that was this actress, Jacki Weaver. And I knew of Jacki Weaver because she was in a movie called Silver Linings Playbook with Robert De Niro, and she was fantastic in it. And I thought, well, that's a really great idea. This is interesting. And so she's really kind of the core element in the movie that propels a change in my character's part. I play a woman named Martha. And just being with Jacki has been really, really a lot of fun because she's very spontaneous, she's bold and brassy, and she turned out to be just a great partner to work with because, she wasn't like a precise actress in the sense of every line is so important. So that always loosens it up for me, and then it's way better. And so she was a great partner, and she was my most substantial. She was really, well, I think really I'm the central part in the movie, but she was the person who really leads the film story forward. Well, first of all, since I play a cheerleader, I had to cheerlead, which was not really something I was looking forward to. And so we have a choreographer, and her name is Marguerite Derricks, and her assistant, Kelly Allen, got all of us, joined all the gals together and in the Valley, and they taught us how to cheerleader. I, of course, needed extra help, and of course, Kelly would have to come to my house, and sometimes Marguerite would come too. It was so sad. It took me so long. But everybody else seemed to be doing quite fine, you know. So, but without them, I don't know what to say. They were just so great. And, you know, you start to see your body and the way it moves. And I would compare my body to my other lady friends and actresses in the film. And let's just say, I have to say that my legs have no muscle. It's really not attractive. They're shaped like this. Ding, that's the bottom part, right? Ding, like that. Then you got a little lump here where the knee is. And then you go right back to the very beginning. It's ugly. But anyway, I did manage to, I was able to perform my cheerleading skills, but only because of everybody, and of course our dear choreographer and Kelly, Marguerite and Kelly. They were troopers to the end. Love them. No, I didn't have fun being a cheerleader. I don't want it. I auditioned when I was a kid, but, you know, I failed. And I was really glad. I decided maybe I should go into the arts, you know, the theatrical arts. What Zara brought to the film, because she's a documentary filmmaker, is true behavior out of people. She engages you. She's not stuck on the script or thinks you should say it in a certain way. And her choices in the people that she hired to play all this vast array of characters was brilliant, because she really chose them based on who they were. You see, that's different than being based on an actor or an actress, or it's just who they were. And that's why they're quirky, great casting. It's just brilliant. What do I hope audiences will experience? I mean, it's like with every movie I've ever been in. Of course, I want them to experience something that matters, that they like, that they take away, that they've been enriched by in some way, or entertained, or touched, or moved. I mean, all those things. That's what you always want with the movie. But I think that what's exceptional about this movie for audiences is, like I said before, is the casting of the people in it. Just amazing. Rhea Perlman, you know, is somebody who's won 4 Emmys, and she for Cheers. But in this particular movie, she is such a doll. It's like you can't believe, well, that's Rhea, but look at Rhea this way. And she's so engaging and adorable. And like I said about Jacki Weaver, I mean, you just don't get people like Jacki. I mean, she's balls to the floor. I mean, she's just like fearless and full of heart. So everybody, I mean, all of them, you know, it's like Pam Grier. I mean, whoa. I mean, my brother Randy had a crush on Pam Grier well, he still does. I mean, that's how unique she is. You know, what she brings is like, whoa. You look at her, oh, all right. Anyway, I've said it.
I first heard about this project from the wonderful Zara Hayes, the director, and it was she who had the original idea and then collaborated with Shane to write it. And she invited me to coffee about 3 years before the film was even made, and told me the story. And I thought it was fascinating and lovely, because it's, you know, the women are the protagonists for once. And there's some great male characters, but it's mainly the women. And being an old feminist from way back before the word got unfashionable, and now it's come back into fashion, you know, I've always loved stories about women, and I think we should have as many stories told about us as men do. But I digress. She was so lovely, and I thought the story was wonderful, and I said I'd love to be involved. And I said, I suppose you want me to play the sad, lonely one. because I play a lot of sad, lonely people. And she said, no, I want you to be the gregarious, extroverted, cheerful one. I said, oh, sure, I'll give that a shot. I don't think I've ever smiled so much in a film in my whole life. But yeah, and then it was quite a while before she got Diane attached too. And then, you know, independent films always have a hard slog getting everything together. And finally she did it, and all praise to Zara. I think she's extraordinary. Well, yeah, the central theme is the relationship between two most unlikely, almost polar opposite personalities, and that's Martha and Cheryl, Diane Keaton and me. And you think at the beginning there's no way they could become friends, but of course they do, and they, just as I think opposites often attract greatly, they become quite firm friends. And it's sort of the payoff is when Martha's really sick and you suddenly see Martha's in bed in the hospital and Cheryl's in the bed with her, giving her comfort, giving her sisterly love. But it's a lot more than that. It's relationships between all the women, how they're emboldened by their togetherness. It's a great female story. Training for the cheerleading was really hard work. I mean, I didn't think it showed up so much in the film what we actually went through, but we had a great choreographer, Marguerite Derricks, famous for The Fabulous Mrs. Maisel, and her dance captain, Kelly Allen. They were so patient and so encouraging. And you know, for women our age, you're a bit creaky and a bit out of condition. It was really hard work. Some of us, it nearly killed us at the beginning, but it was good. It was good exercise. I don't know if fun's the right word.
I was offered this part, and I read the script. I had actually talked to Zara a couple of months earlier. I was in New York doing a play, and my agent said, I don't know if you have time because the play was just opening. Can you have a conversation? And we had a very long Skype conversation. And originally the part of Alice was very, very raunchy, extremely. And it was also kind of written for a Midwestern religious lady. So I thought, well, I really liked the script. It was just kind of a fun concept. I thought, you know, people in a senior living community starting a cheerleading squad, and you know, and that it was based on a true story. That really, really appealed to me, and I knew that Diane Keaton and Jacki Weaver were already attached to it. And to tell you the truth, I'd just sit in a chair and say nothing in a Diane Keaton movie. I mean, she's just so amazing, and I've been a fan of her forever. And now of Jacki's. The last few years, I've gotten to know her work more since Silver Lining Playbook, and I've gone back and looked. It's amazing people. So anyways, they drew me to the project. One, my conversation with Zara was a lot of fun. I said, well, maybe we can find a way of doing it as a Jewish girl from Brooklyn, you know. And we were pitching all kinds of ideas. And then I didn't hear about it. And then I just, out of the blue, my agent called and said they had actually cast somebody else in this part. And they're totally different than me, but they had to drop out. And it was always between you and her and Zara's mind, so would you like to do it? I went, yeah, absolutely. I'll be right there. Coming over. I was in New York, and I came back to LA, and we did a lot of boot camp rehearsal. And I had come in a little late to learning the routine, so I really had to catch up, you know, which was more challenging than I thought. It really was, you know, because Marguerite Derrick, who is the choreographer, and she's fantastic. She's choreographed major dancers and major actors, so she's a lot of fun to work with, but very serious about what she does. She wants us all to be in unison and know what we're doing, so that we can also not know what we're doing when we're supposedly in the movie learning it. So it was quite the process. I love this group of ladies. There was such a gas. Everybody was different. There's a few of us from LA, and then there's a whole bunch of people there's Atlanta, New Orleans. One woman came up from one of the North Carolina, I think. And everybody had such a different background, and they were all so into it. I mean, in a way, we were cheerleaders for being cheerleaders, It was really, it was joyful. It was very joyful working with everybody. Yeah, our boot camp was intense. It was a few days. Well, for them it was longer because, like I said, I came in a little later. So maybe for me it was 2.5 days in LA, and then a week in Atlanta before we started shooting. Because when we started shooting, we went right into all the dance routines, all the cheerleading scenes, including the big competitions. So we really had to know our stuff, and they gave us music to listen to at home, to practice, and you really felt like you had to practice, because it wasn't like each step was that demanding. It was the combination and putting them together. And for me, definitely the hardest part was the formation. Like, you had to, there were 3 lines, steps, sometimes with 2 lines, sometimes with 1, and you would go back and forth, and sometimes you had to walk backwards into a mark, but there was no mark. We weren't allowed to have marks in the reel when we were actually doing it. So we really had to sense where people were. But I watching the movie last night, I see myself going, oh, wait a minute. I see, and then adjusting, because I see I'm not in the same line as Diane or Jacki or something. And so it was a lot of work and a lot of fun, because dancing, it's basically dancing. It's not like we're not doing gymnastics, which is the kind of cheerleading that young people in high schools are doing now, like amazing gymnastics, like in the movie Bring It On. We're doing cheer dance. And I love dancing, so it was made you feel good. You felt like worked out every day. Zara Hayes, the director, is a kind of a force of nature as far as this film is gone, because I feel like she got it done by sheer will. She found the story, she created the script with somebody, and first they had to make up the story and then the script, and then Shane Atkinson, I think is the name of the other writer, and I don't know the story of how she came before I was involved as much as since I was involved, but I know that even then, even when we were all cast and we were ready to go, they weren't even sure where they were shooting it. It was between a couple of states, it's an indie, wasn't done for very little money, and comparatively very little money, and they had to get the best deal and the best deals on everything and find the right crew and all that kind of stuff. And I think that it was very tense. She never seemed tense. She always had the most positive attitude. This woman is positivity, exudes positivity. And shooting it was challenging. It was very challenging. And especially since she'd never directed a feature before. And there was a definite learning curve, but, she's smart. And so it all came together. But when it really came together, and how brilliant, her real brilliance, I thought, was in her post-production. I mean, and as a documentarian, I think you bring that because you have so much footage, everything, hours and hours and days of footage, and you have to find a way to string it together to make a story. For instance, in this movie, there was a whole bunch of scenes we did not get because of weather and then people's schedules that were all involved with a very, like kind of a chase to the end. What are we going to do? They'll have to call us back. We'll have to find somewhere to do this, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how she made it work. She and the editors, they made it work. They made everything work. They got the music. They had the right choices. I just think she did a brilliant job with this movie. I was awed when I saw it, because I mean, it's not, a movie you're going to go out and go, oh, did you see this movie? It's brilliant. It's like, did you see this movie? It's so much fun. That's the kind of movie it is. And that's what she wanted it to be. And it's moving and real, and I think it's great. She's great. I think when people see Poms, they're just going to, first of all, if you've seen the trailer and that's why you're going, or you've seen any ads and that's why you're going, it is exactly what you want it to be. It doesn't, like, you don't think you're going to see a comedy, but it's really a horror movie. It's like that kind of thing, like where, it's really, it's a feel-good movie, but it's also emotional, and it's got a great message, There's no such thing as age, I think, is the message, and that people can do whatever they want to do as long as they have the energy to do it, and the will to do it. So I just think people will come out of there feeling like great and go have some food with their friends they saw it with, and have it's a great day, great time.
It might seem strange that a British documentary maker ends up making a comedy about cheerleading, but the truth is this story actually came from my documentary interests. I was sitting on my sofa in England 5 years ago, back in London, and I came across these photographs in a Sunday newspaper of these women in America in their 60s and 70s who had set up a cheerleading team for older women. And I was completely taken aback by these images and amazed by them. And what's interesting is that it kind of defied all my own preconceptions about cheerleading as a sport, which is a kind of sexist and anachronistic thing in many ways. Because I looked at these women and in their faces I could see joy and empowerment, and I sort of thought that's very arresting, and I couldn't get these images out of my mind. And so I started to think about making a documentary, actually, in the first instance, about these women who were cheerleading. And I contacted some of them, and I went to visit them, and I talked to them. And in the process of doing that, I realized that actually this idea had a bigger scope and could be a movie story, because to me, it encapsulated so many things about getting older and messages about kind of it never being too late to chase a desire or a dream that you have, and not accepting society's limitations about what women are supposed to do, and certainly women above a certain age. And so I just couldn't let this idea go, and it spiraled from there. And from that moment of being back in England and thinking, how am I going to pull this off? Because I've never actually made a narrative movie before. I just sort of, went with the momentum of the project, and here we are today. It's kind of beyond my wildest dreams. From the day that Diane Keaton came on board, she was an invaluable creative partner in all aspects of the filmmaking. And the idea that she was excited to play Martha, and this was a role that she was going to fight for and stick with. She was attached to the project for years before it actually happened, and we had numerous iterations of the script that she was involved with, and she was just the partner, she was the collaborator, and that meant so much to me and makes the whole film what it is. And then I knew that playing opposite Diane, the Cheryl character, was really important, because really the movie is about a friendship, and the most central friendship is the one between Diane's character Martha and Jacki's character Cheryl, who comes into Martha's life and changes her whole experience of the end of her life. And Jacki Weaver is someone who I've been a fan of for years, and I think that she is an exceptional and extraordinary actress at the top of her game. And she's often cast in darker, dramatic roles. So some people have said to me, it's a bit surprising that you thought of Jacki for Cheryl immediately. But to me, it was never a contradiction, because you can always see in Jacki Weaver, she's an incredibly accomplished actress anyway. She's also has a track record in comedy. She's just not as known for it over here in the States. But she has this kind of mischievous or playfulness that you can see in her eyes mainly, that I kind of always felt like Cheryl is a troublemaker, she's a mischief maker, and she comes into Martha's life and changes everything. She's this little whirlwind who comes in and kind of rocks Martha's center. And I felt like we needed someone who would be able to play off Diane like that. And I just found the idea of Diane Keaton and Jacki Weaver together very electrifying, and that the chemistry there could be incredible. And luckily Diane was very excited about working with Jacki as well. And so we built everything from there, really. You know, they were the two people who were attached from a really early stage. And I think the project wouldn't have happened without the two of those women. And then when we got to casting the rest of the film, when we had the green light, we managed to bring people on board who, it's the group really that says it all. You know, about in this movie, it's so much about the group dynamics and the team that we managed to get together. It was almost like this additive process where, as one more building block was brought on board, you know, that made it even more attractive to other people to come on board. And so, you know, Pam Grier is a complete movie icon. She's a 20th century cinema icon. And she was, from the first phone call I had with her, so excited about the idea of playing a cheerleader. She was texting me pictures of ideas that she had for routines and music that we could use, and her kind of passion for it just shone through. I know also that she had a lifelong bucket list ambition to work with Diane Keaton. She thinks that they're sort of spirit sisters. And so she was just in immediately, and working with her was a dream. But all of the women were so. This is what I took from working with them, is that these are women who've had long careers in the movie and TV business. They are experts at their craft. They have honed their craft for decades, and they've been in the public eye for decades as well. And the way they approached the work was so humble and open. And I didn't quite believe that was going to be possible across the board. But I think starting from the top with Diane, that attitude kind of percolated down. And I feel like they all just came, brought themselves and brought their authentic selves and their honest selves to the process. And I forgot that I was working with these legends at a certain point, which I know sounds crazy, but people ask me, what was it like to work with Pam Grier, Rhea Perlman? And it's like, I just saw these women and we formed a group, and they just came as who they were and brought their years of expertise with them, but were so gracious and so humble. And to me, in terms of working with me as a first-time narrative filmmaker, they just completely accepted and were open to the collaboration between us, and that was, I mean, that to me was kind of life-changing for me as a director. And then you mentioned Rhea Perlman. I mean, Rhea Perlman is, when we were trying to get a location for where we would film the movie, we had to pitch to I'll start again. We filmed this movie in a real retirement community in Georgia. So Sun Springs is actually a real retirement community. And we had to go and pitch to the board of the retirement community, like Martha does in the film, where she has to pitch to Vicky for the cheerleading club. We had to go and pitch to the people who ran this community. And when we told them that we had Rhea Perlman on board, their reaction was just like out of this world. She is so loved. And I knew that, but not being American, I knew that she's a household name, but seeing the excitement in these retirement community residents that Carla was going to be around was just so exciting. And we're not on set. People would still be in the community coming and going, and they'd just be like, "Morning, Carla." And anyway, Rhea's an exceptional comedic actress. And I think that the Alice character, to me, it's interesting because it could be a role that it's inherently a broad comedy arc that we're going for with her. It's actually one of the only things in the script that's true, that I did hear about a woman whose husband had told her she couldn't join a cheerleading team, and then he died very quickly after, and it became a running joke amongst the other women that she kind of killed him, which I found delightfully funny. And obviously that became the kind of turning point in this character from the true story. But she plays it, I think, in a way that is more nuanced than that, and actually you see in her a real vulnerability. Especially in the mirror scene, when there's a scene where all the women have to say one thing they like about themselves, and Alice, Rhea's character, can't think of a single thing that she likes, and I find that kind of heartbreaking, and it feels very real to me, as someone who's a woman who has been in a relationship for many years and has become invisible. She's forgot to look at herself, and I find that very moving, and I think to extract that kind of nuance from a role that is very broad in other ways is kind of testament to Rhea and her talents. I think there's not enough overlap and conversation between generations in today's world, and I think everyone suffers as a result of that. As a woman, I'm always looking for role models in older women. I didn't know either of my grandmothers, and I kind of never had that influence in my life, and I kind of constantly am trying to befriend older women to learn from, and I think that there's a huge gulf in society. We're so youth obsessed and youth focused, but actually we should be turning to people who've lived through decades of social change and have kind of been there, done that, seen it, got the t-shirt, and asking them for advice. And I felt like that was a very important part of the story. Often these stories will have the kind of the children of the septuagenarians, so the 40-odd-year-old, but not the 20-odd-year-old. And I feel like the more interesting interplays between people who are on the cusp of adulthood and the people who are kind of coming, reflecting on their life and are kind of in the latter stages. And I think that's kind of a really powerful and moving message to the film, and we really wanted to kind of shine a light on it. And I just think also at the end of the day, it becomes, you almost forget the young versus old thing, and you kind of just see friendship, and friendship is beautiful. And why can't you have friends who are 50 years older than you, or 50 years younger than you? We don't, and I don't know why, and I kind of wish I had more friends of different ages.